My name is Quentin and I'm a technical specialist here at ATG. And today we're going to be talking about the Family Checker. The Family Checker allows you to check the health of your component family library as well as your annotation symbol family library. We all want to think that our families are correct and don't have any problems with them, but don't have the time to sit down and check every single one of them. With Family Checker, this automates the process and creates a report on each family, giving you a checklist of about 40 different major points of quality, and it tells you if your family is up to par or not. With Family Checker, you can find the problem of your family within minutes compared to spending hours searching and finding nothing. Today you'll learn how to navigate the Family Checker, how to conduct a check, learn about the two different checklists that the family creator makes, learn how to correct the problems that are within your family, and learn how to save your reports out. Now let's get started. I'm just going to go ahead and open up a family that I've created. And under your CTC software tab, and under the CTC BIM Manager Suite, you'll find the Family Checker. And we'll go ahead and open that up. And the first thing you notice when you open the Family Checker, you have two options. You can search by your current family, which that's what I have right now, just the one family open. Or if you're in a project and want to search multiple families, you can use the multiple family checker and then just peruse the certain files that houses all the families within them. But today we're just going to focus on the current family files. And up top you'll see we have all these options, and if you ever have any problems you can always watch the videos or contact support. But we're going to open up the options panel. And under the general, you'll see that you have the user's initials. So whenever you create a family check report, it will pop up a number with the date that it was created and the user's initials at the end. And then you'll have the parameter files, which the main parameter file is the file that your company uses as your shared parameter files. And then the seat parameter files is what Autodesk uses as a base shared parameter file for all of their families, which this will determine on what your checklist looks for later in the report. And then you have the valid groups. And here is just a look at what parameters types that the report looks at, determining what family it belongs to and what needs to be corrected. So basically it's just looking that if it was like an MEP electrical, it's going to look through these parameters to see if there's anything wrong with it. So like if you didn't have a color temperature or anything on there, it would prompt a command for you to, or an action for you to correct. And next to the valid groups, you have name rules. And here you have valid name parts and invalid parts. So the valid parts are like if you had certain parameters that control hidden parameters or control parameters that you don't want it to search, you'll just put them under the valid name parts. Or like if I made ATG parameters, I don't want it to look for those. And then you have the invalid name parts. So if there were certain abbreviations or symbols or number types that you don't like being in parameters, you can also set this up to find those as well and have you know which ones to correct. And once you get this to your liking, up at the top of the options, you have a save option, which is great if you are working for a company that have multiple people and you're setting this up for everyone. You could just set this up for the company and just send out this saved options for them. And so whenever they go to load the options, they can just come to set the options, load options, and then just click the file that they want to load. And then it will preload whatever you already specified for them. Now that we have the options that we want, we're gonna go ahead and create a report. So at the bottom right, you'll just check family, and it's checking the current family that I have open. And it usually takes a few seconds to open. So now that I have it open, I'm going to expand a little bit so we can look at it better. Now that we have this open, you can see at the top it gives you a little summary about your family. It gives you the family name, which mine is just an end table that I created December 16th. And if this was a manufacturer content that you were searching, it would pop up the manufacturer. And then it specifies if it's a model or annotation family type, which mine's a model. And it also gives you the family category that it is, and mine is furniture for being my end table. And if you were working with a mechanical part like a ductwork or something MEP, it will most likely pop up a part type here. Then it gives you the date that it was created with a review number followed by the date again, followed by the initials that you set up in the options. So whenever you send this out to someone, they'll know who created it, and if they have any questions, they know who to go talk to get more insight about it. And then under the review number, it tells you if it's a MEP content, which is not since it's a furniture model. It tells you if it's a manufacturing content, which it's not, it's just one that I created. And then also tells you if it's a annotation family or not, which is not, it's a model one. And then it gives you an overall view of how well or how healthy your family is, which mine isn't that healthy. So it gives you an overall family status of non-compliant. So there is some problems within my family that I created, which isn't up to par with our standards. Then it gives a critical status given action required. So there are some actions that I need to go through and fix. And then it gives a secondary status with actions recommended. So this could be some problems I do need to fix, or it could be some that are not really worth fixing. And then we have the 2D ready non-compliant, which it's just saying that in my model, in the 2D spots, there are some 3D modeling viewable in it. So it knocks it as non-compliant. And you have MFR metadata, non-compliant, the shared parameters, which is non-compliant. So there's going to be some things I need to change in there. Geometry constraints acceptable. So if you were to make this table longer, taller, or wider, it should be able to move the way you want it. MEP connectors, which it's not, so it's in a materials included. It's acceptable because I added a walnut material in there. Revit hosting is acceptable, and hosting is NA since it's not a host family. And then under the summary, you have a little section where you can add notes to whoever you send this out to fix. So if you wanted them to really work on the 2D readiness, you can leave a comment, make 2D ready acceptable. And so whenever they look at this, like, all right, so they really want me to just fix the 2D ready from non-compliant to acceptable. And then under the comments, we have a brief overlook of what each of the boxes mean in the checklist. So up top, you'll have the reference section of the Revit model content style guide. And then you'll have the what it actually referring to. So this is referring to the detail level and changes in detail level. And then underneath it gives you a brief outline of what is being looked at. So this is basically showing what it's looking for and what it needs to be. And then if it's not correct, over in the comments, it will give you an action that would pretty much resolve it or get you looking in the right spot. And then you'll have either yellow, red, or green for the complicity of it. Action is recommended, action is required, or optimal, which you want all your stuff to be optimal, so there's no problem with it. And then under the little overlook, you'll have your Revit family health checklist. And then a little below, you'll have the Autodesk Seek Revit content checklist, which this is where the under your options, the parameter file is looking. So for the Revit family health check, that is looking at your company's shared parameter file. And so if you're more worried about your company standards, this would be the one that you want to look at the most. Or if you're just creating a content just for anybody to use, like if you just want to share it on the web for people to download and use and make sure they have a correct family, you would use the Autodesk Seek content checklist so that it's more correct to the Autodesk standard instead of your actual company standard, which might not be the same. And so I'm more worried about our company standards, so I'm going to use the Revit Family Health Checklist. And so it pretty much gives you a summary again. The file name is my in table. There isn't a manufacturer. It's a furniture family category, and there is no part number. And then it gives the date and the review number. And so we'll start looking at the checklist and see what's popping up. And so this first part is the 2D readiness, the planning model content. And so you can see I have 2 actions required. And so this is just stating the detail level and change in detail level. So this is looking at whether your model changes from coarse, medium, or fine. And so it's telling me in the comments that I have in my reference level a couple of, I guess, extrusions that appear the same in coarse and fine detail, which this is just a table, so I'm not really worried about the fine or coarseness changing, but maybe if I was working with a door and on course, I just wanted to show the opening of the door. And if I needed more detail on the find, I can have it set up to show the door frame, maybe the door handle and whatever else I need it to show. But since this is just a table, I'm not really worried about the course and fine details of this level. So I don't really need to worry about this. And the next it's showing the element visibility. So this is just looking at the element as a whole in the plan view. On my reference level, it's saying that it's showing 3D objects, which I don't really mind because it's just a simple table I just threw together. But if I was worried about making my file size bigger or not, I can come over here and it's saying instead of showing it to just make symbolic lines to make the file size smaller, but I'm not really worried about it. But if I was working on a multi-story building and I have 50 or 100 of these tables going in, I probably would want to change it to symbolic lines just to make my file smaller so I'm not bogging down Revit trying to load all of these. And then next it's showing my identity data parameter population. So this is just looking at the parameters and if they populate manufacturer, model, URL, or description, which I'm not worried about any of these things. So I'm not making this as a manufacturing content or where someone can find it online for them. This is just a simple table for my project. So I'm not worried about this one. So I'll just leave that one as is. And then next it's going to your shared parameters, which this is looking at all the parameters that you created. And the first two are pretty much looking at do you have pretty much duplicates of the same parameter, which this one is showing, yeah, in my parameters, I have width in both of my parameter files in the materials. And so if I was really worried about that, I could go in and consolidate that into just one of the parameters. So this one, like maybe, yeah, I don't want it to get mixed up with the width or materials and messing with two different ones. So I would probably want to go back and change these to just be one instead of having it in two spots. And then you have the family units, which this is looking at the architectural units, mechanical, or STR, which I'm not really worried about that because we only work in the architectural units, so we use foot and inches. But if I was a company that worked with mechanical, the decimals, and architectural foot and inches, then I would probably want to specify which one this is or make it easy for them to switch back and forth. So this one might be one that I would want to look at and correct. And sometimes they just have you manually check, but it still gives you a brief description of what you're looking for and what needs to be changed. And the last one under this is the custom parameters creation. So this one's just talking about all the parameters I did create, and they're just saying that I correctly put them in the right groups. So this one's optimal, so that one I don't need to look at. And then this one is the geometry constraint. So this is looking at how are my lines and reference planes all constrained together. And so this one is prompting actions recommended. So it's saying that some of my extrusions are partially constrained, which this might prompt an error if I was to change the width or the length, maybe one of my legs or all of my legs might not constrain right. So this one would probably really be one that I would recommend looking at, because if someone was to modify your table and make it 6 foot long, your legs might not constrain right and go out of whack. So this one is one that I would really want to look at to make sure that it is optimal and fully constrained, so that there's no way for my legs or tabletop not to constrain correctly. And this is just your family type flex without error, which is saying that my model flex has no error, so this is good. And then you have the MEP Connector Usage, which it's a furniture family, so all this is NA. But if you're working in MEP, this would be one that you would really want to make sure that they are correct. Then underneath it, you'll have like a little secondary checklist of your Revit family health checklist, which is just looking at your materials and if it's good for hosting, which my materials are good. And it's saying that I need actions recommended for my material parameters, but I'm not too worried about it. And then I'm not too worried about it hosting, since it's just a table. I don't really need it to host anything else. And so that's the main checklist that I looked through in the Revit family health checklist. And if I just wanted to briefly check the Autodesk standards, I will go through here. But you can see how it's not as detailed. Like this one is only looking at the 3D view, saying that it's not different from the fine and coarse, whereas the Revit one, it's more looking at the reference level where you would actually see it in your Revit model, giving you a more detailed action to change, which this one's just 3D model. And most of the times in the Autodesk Suite, they mostly give you like a manually check this, manually check that. So it's not really giving you a good place to search, but they still give you a place to start looking. But as to telling you what you need to do, it mostly gives you a manual check. And now that I've gone through my checklist and know what I need to fix, I can save the report. So on the bottom right, you'll have save reports. And I normally just leave the first part, family check report, with the date. So if someone is looking, they know what it is. So, all right, this is a family check report. And then I just name whatever my family was. So it was just my end table. And so I just add end table to the end of it. And it saves it as the Microsoft Excel files, Excel SM, Excel SX, and XLS. And then once I have it into the appropriate location, just save. And once you save it, it'll give you this prompt that, all right, you saved it. Do you want to open this after you save it? And if I'm just the only one working on this, I'll be like, sure, I'll go ahead and open it and start making changes now. Or if I'm doing a multiple family report, I can tell it no, and then I'll just send the Excel report to whichever team member is in charge of the health of your families, and then just send them an email with the report in it, and then they'll see up here in the comments what they really need to work on, or you can just tell them in the email